Good morning, Steve. I just want to let you know I was in there by 9 o'clock. I've just been sitting in the spot there.
Don't throw me under the bus.
See, I was there. Wasn't throwing you under the bus.
I'm kidding. I saw you there.
How's everyone doing?
All right, I suppose. Um, are we gonna have a quorum?
It's a working session. We don't need a quorum. This is just for the commissioners to provide input to the chair so the letters can go out, but the letters are going out from the chair regardless of by the end of the day today.
And we have 6 people here.
Oh, I just saw 6. Oh, you're right. Huh.
Should we give just another minute or so just to see if there's anybody else coming in? Is everybody okay with that? Waiting for a few more moments.
Sure.
All right. Did Sharon join us, or I just wanted to see if we're waiting for anybody else? Are we good to just move in?
Hello, commissioners. I only had 4 responses, so we've exceeded the amount that have responded.
Well, I will call this meeting to order then. It's for our working session at 9:05. We only have 1 item or 2 items, but the only working session item is Charter School Division and PEC commissioners to provide input to chair for letters to renewing school applicants to assist them to prepare for the renewal hearings in December. And we have 1 in November as well during our November meeting. Southwest Learning has decided to go forward, as we talked about in our last official meeting, that they are going to go through on November the 17th to go through their renewal hearing. With that, we have all the draft letters that Julia put together for us. They're in the Google folder for the PEC. If you haven't opened that already, I want to make sure you all have those in front of you. And then Julia, I'm going to pass the mic over to you to share any other processes. This is my first time in doing this process. And so I know you all went through this last year, maybe years before that too. And so excited to kind of move forward on that. Commissioner Beck, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I worked with Julia yesterday and the day before. She got all my input and she actually put it into the letters. I'm not, my esteemed ear, nose, and throat surgeon said I am not supposed to speak for the next 2 months because my polyp has not gone down. So that's why I sent all the information to Julia, and Julia's input it. So I'll probably be quite quiet today.
Thank you, Commissioner Beck, and wishing you continued health and healing for sure.
You want me to start, or Commissioner Ingham has his hand up?
Commissioner Ingham, go ahead.
Well, I just want to also say I've spent a heck of a lot of time trying to review this, and I have struggled mightily with this. There is an awful lot of educational jargon that is really difficult for me to process. I've spent hours and hours and hours working on this, but I'm going to kind of be quiet myself because the questions that I have seem to be so rudimentary and so that I can't even see how I can make comment right now. So I'm gonna also remain pretty quiet during this. I really want to hear this. I want to understand, but I do not have the education background to manage all the terminology that goes through these renewal applications. So I'll kind of follow Tim's forward. Anyway, I'm just gonna be quiet. Thanks.
Well, Julia, maybe you can start with giving the overview of the purpose behind these letters, the history behind that. I think that'll be helpful to your point, Stuart. And then we can move into reviewing individual letters as needed. So
Great. Thank you. And actually, Commissioner Ingham, I might give you a call later on this afternoon to just see if there's some thoughts that you do want to add. I'm pretty good at translating what you guys are, I hope, what you guys are thinking into what we're doing. So the genesis of this letter, which is this letter and a similar letter that goes out on the new school applications, is now embedded in our rule. It came from I'll say a critique, pretty strong critique from a district court judge in one of our appeals, that the commission, you all, not CSD, which acts as your staff, needed to provide timely input as to where schools were. You've made very strong strides in that, with very strong processes at this point. And so the purpose of this input working session is to tell the chair if you have more questions or things that you want more information on at the renewal hearing. So I'll just give you one example. Commissioner Beck had a question about teacher retention rate. The idea is to just tell the school, we have a question about teacher retention rate. Please be prepared in December to address that. Because you don't want to get to December and have them say, oh gosh, I didn't know you had that question, because that's their only opportunity to get back to you. So the purpose today is both for CSD, but and CSD may or may not have questions. Obviously they've had their hands on these renewals for quite a while, but they at times might have an additional question. So there's an opportunity for them to ask something that, in addition or not, and then additional areas of interest for commissioners, just to prepare them. The top part of the letter, I have gone through the very extensive work that CSD has put in and identified things that looked to raise a question or looked to be things where the school was not at the level that it was, a flag, working to meet or did not meet, or some number that seemed like you might have a question about that. So for example, when Commissioner Beck sent me his list, some of them are already up there because CSD had already flagged them. So this is just a letter from the commission, from the chair, to say to the schools, this is our input. As we roll out the rule, there's going to be more and more of this, because you're going to do an annual report. Or CSD is going to do an annual report. You're going to accept that annual report. You're going to do a notice letter to the school. So there's going to be much more of this kind of thing. I want to stop here because I want to say something else about the process overall. I can't tell you how pleased I am with the way that this looks, the way I wanted it to, and I could envision. I'm only saying an I statement because I think that many of you share this, but the initial recommendation and the part A and the information from the schools is absolutely stellar. We don't have all the information that you want from PED, but this looks to me like a solid, sound renewal application process. And the fact that many of you, whether you struggle or not, could spend hours looking at it, just shows how much data are in there, the quality of the work. I appreciate you, Commissioner Beck, but we can't use chat. So I did want to pause and say how excellent I thought it was. You've gotten, including the back and forth between the school and CSD. You've even gotten 2 emails today of CSD continuing to refine and look at that, which is exactly where we are in the process. And that's exactly what should be happening. So I see at least 4 CSD people on here. And I want to take my hat off to you. And when we start to get the data from PED, I just feel like you guys are finally able to do the work at the level that I want you to be able to, and with the support from both schools and CSD. So that's my
Julie, before you
soapbox
move-
aside.
Julie, before you move on, Tim, if there's something that you want to share, I mean, I do think that given that this could be, I don't know how else he could talk to us. So, and I think this could be like an extraordinary scenario where I don't want to, I get.
I think we should just
So I
read it
think-
in. So he says,
So maybe that's sorry, Julie, I was still talking, but so either put it in there and I'll read it, or if you want to, you can just text me so we can make sure we can hear your voice.
I can talk that limited. I don't have to put it in the chat. Don't worry. No worries.
Alan, you want to read what he said though?
Sure. So Tim said, totally agree with Julia. We can focus on the issues with the schools.
Unless there are questions, what I'd like to do is take each letter and then we don't, and I don't want to replicate something that's already in the letter. So if you have additional things for each school, please, I'll add it. And then, Alan, I just have my own version open. So if you wanted to share the screen on the letter, that's fine. But I just felt it was easier for me to type into my own letter rather than on the Google Drive, but it's the exact same version. And then just the end of the process is Alan and I will discuss these by later on today, I hope. I'm not quite sure about his schedule, but then he will get them out to the schools in the next day or so. We're looking for a 30-day window for them to be able to prepare, but we have more time than that. So that's the final part of this. I'm ready to move to the first letter, Alan, if you are. Alan, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
Charter School Division team, if you could put it up onto the screen for us, that'd be great. So the first letter, Julia,
Is aviation, Albuquerque Aviation Academy. This used to be the Southwest Aeronautics. They had a name change, but that is the school. So I guess CSD, did you have any comment? Any other additional topics that you want to put in here?
No,
Okay, otherwise we'll turn to commissioners. If you have comments, I think if you go down to the bottom of the letter, keep going, thank you. So, there
Can
were,
you just make it larger? One more, maybe even larger.
so we've got two areas of additional, things that you're interested in. It can be an area of concern, it could be an area of interest, it can be something that you just wanted more information. And this is kind of the length that we already have in here. I'd kind of like to keep to that.
So for me, in general, something that and I agree with Mr. Beck on retention rate. In general, I'm going to want to hear plans for educational progress. So I know that sometimes schools, in general, I'm not just speaking of Albuquerque Aviation, but I know that schools are in the, maybe upper 20s, low 30s on English proficiency and maybe the same for math. And I'm going to want to know, what is their plan, 1, 2, 3-year plan to make sure those academic indicators show us that they're making a good deal of progress. Because that's one of the things I think that has always stood out to me, is that there hasn't been much progress for many of our schools over the years.
Okay.
So that in general.
Okay, I've added that. Alan, did you want to call on people? You want me to?
yeah, I'll call on people. Commissioner Gibson.
So thanks. So I have a general question that actually spans a lot of schools. So there's a number of schools that have received significant amounts of money through grants. So what I'd like to be able to ask schools as a whole is to give a general rundown of the amount of grant money that has come in over the past 5 years, and just not a dollar by dollar, but a general accounting of the areas that they spent that grant money on. And then moving forward, we know that small school size adjustment is gone now, and ESSER money is gone. So what are schools, especially those schools that had low scores in growth rate of math, especially, and English, what's their plan now that they've got significant drops in funding to be able to move forward and support their, as Commissioner Creo said, educational programming, but to give the supports to improve their growth rates, which is what we're looking for. So especially those schools like Raíces and Solari and Dream Dene, and I'm missing, I think, one, San Diego Red River in particular, those stick out in terms of going forward with their, but I think most of the schools, their growth rate isn't great, but how are they going to prioritize supporting students with the lack of funding that they're going to have?
Thank you, Commissioner Karina, then Commissioner Taylor, and then Commissioner Carrillo.
And Alan, I'll just tell you that I'm going to add those 3 to each school.
Thank you, commissioners. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for the thoughtful conversation. This is in response to Commissioner Carrillo's last comment. And so just a little bit of context for how we've been approaching it. We've mostly been asking schools to talk about their past performance, not their future performance. And even though schools do get excited and want to share what plans they have for the future. So I think including this is really key. One of the things that we've coached schools on is, of course, when they come in December, they'll want to share some of their hopes for the future. They often do some sort of audio visual as part of their comments so that you have an idea of what the school looks like and where it's headed. But if you want for them to talk about the future, then I do think how we word that is important. Schools that have a designation should be writing a 90-day plan as their priority school requirement, and they are eligible for funding to support work that they have on that. So they might pull from that. Also, as a resource to schools, we might also ask them to take a look so that they aren't rewriting something from scratch, right? So they're not having to like develop things from scratch. Another resource they have is the ed plans that were created when they were creating their budget, where they talked about the different groups and how they were prioritizing support for groups, especially the groups that meet the criteria for Martinez-Yazzie. And then Julia, I don't know if you want to make comment about like, what is the renewal decision-making criteria? And it really is on what the school has done, although our renewal application does talk about what are some adult actions that the school has taken to improve. And that's the case with a lot of these recommendations, is that we did see a lot of adult actions and results. So just wanted to give that little context relative to Carrillo's comment.
Alan, if I can jump in.
Yeah.
I was just pulling up the law and And it says that a charter school renewal application shall consider a report on the progress of meeting academic performance, financial compliance, governing responsibility of the charter school, including achieving the goals, objectives, student performance outcomes, state standards of excellence, and other terms of the charter contract. Which I think is how CSD has approached it, but I also think that that's consistent with what Commissioner Carrillo is saying, which is, you know, you have what you've done, but it isn't going to stop there. So I think I don't have a problem putting that in there. Because I think it's a continuation of what the report is and how they're going to achieve those outcomes. In particular, if something was not sufficient in the past, you have a strong plan for, you know, looking at that and changing that and improving that. I think that's consistent and in the spirit of the charter school law. So I'm fine with putting that in each one.
Commissioner Taylor and then Commissioner Creel.
Yeah, thank you. Julia, what could you talk about or could you just list the 3 things that you were going to add to each of the letters, just so I have an
yes, I maybe what I'll do is drop them into one. The first one came from Commissioner Carrillo. Please provide your plan for educational progress overall during the next charter term. With the second one, from Commissioner Gibson, with regard to grant funding you may have received, please provide a general accounting of how you spent the grant funds. Third one, with regard to the reduction in small school size adjustment and the ending of federal funding, what is the plan for your school to support students, educational programming, and the growth rate of students?
Okay, thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with Steve's recommendation that and your inclusion to all school to kind of talk about what their educational plan is for the future, because, you know, my thought processes as I was going through these is several of the schools had a recommendation for renewal with no conditions, and yet proficiency rates were marginal as far as I was concerned. So I think really an ability for them to talk about what their educational plan is and how that's going to change. They should be prepared to look at that, you know, and even on the basis of, yeah, so we beat state averages, we beat district averages, but is, you know, 50% proficiency, is that good enough? You know, so I think it gives them the opportunity, all of them, the opportunity to talk about how they're going to improve. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Creel.
Yes, first, I would expand on what Patty said, and that is where they're indicating, you know, how they spent the money and everything else. What have they got to show for it is what I don't, you know, in holding them accountable, not dollar for dollar, but if, you know, if they got a certain grant for science, let's say, will show us what tangibly have you seen happen as a result of your receiving this grant and how you're using it. I mean, I don't know if Patty would agree, but that's just something I was thinking as Ms. Gibson was talking.
Oh yeah, can I just
of course
add,
Go ahead.
I kind of thought that their scores, when we looked at the funding and the scores, we kind of see that, but if you want it further, you know, outlined, that's fine. I just figured we'd make that connection on our own, but maybe not.
Well, it's like, I don't want people to feel that, oh my God, I did the first 2 parts of it and you didn't ask me for this. And, you know, it's just, I don't want anyone to feel a gotcha. So I agree with you that it should kind of be implied in what you were saying.
Steve, I've just added, and the results you believe were achieved. Is that right here?
Yeah. What was the term? There was a term that oh, I just forgot her name. The wonderful person that always helps us that comes from DC.
Naomi.
Naomi.
Where there was like three things when you had step one, I can't remember the process. It's some acronym you guys talk about in education, but it had to do with what Patty was saying. So I got a kick out of Mike's using, I wrote it down, and like the word marginal at best when you said Mike, around performance, right? And so I think marginal, when I look at some of the schools and what we accept as, and I've said this before, as what we take as acceptable in New Mexico, I think it's just bad. And when kids, I mean, here we are graduating them and they have to take remedial math and English when they go to community college, yet somehow or another, they were, in an upper proficiency rate. Or I was at a school where was I? Oh, I was at the Santa Fe Capital volleyball game. Santa Fe, we spanked them. It was really great. But I was talking with someone about this, a parent, and it was senior night, and so some of the kids, had a GPA of 4.0 and things like this. And then I told her, because my experience on the board of education for Santa Fe is that doesn't mean much depending on what school you're coming from, because you could have that and still end up having to take remedial, whether it's at the community college or where you're going to school, which obviously extends your school year. So I think in that way we failed them. So when people have rates that we consider acceptable, for me personally, they are not. And with regards to what Karina said about, we're looking at the past, this is the way I heard it anyway, not as much the future. I would say, and this is like my private sector experience, and I'll use the example of being with Hilton. It's like, yeah, Steve, you had a really great year. What are you going to do next year to bring these numbers up? Show me, tell me what you're going to do to bring these numbers up to meet our sales goals, for the outlets at Buffalo Thunder, right? And I think it's very reasonable for us to ask them, your scores are pretty much in the cellar. And I would say, I would personally say, within the next 3 years, we want to see progress of at least 3 proficiency points every year. That's what what I might articulate to them when they come before us. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to put their feet to the fire. And if they don't have a plan for greater academic success, or if they feel somehow slighted by that, they're in the wrong position.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to make sure that we are continuing. We have a lot of good questions here. I think we, over the last couple of minutes, we started to maybe get into a little bit more of specifics and not necessarily the specific action that we're taking today, which is to discuss the questions. And so I just want to make sure as a PEC, we're thinking about the questions that we want to include within within each of these letters. We do have 13 of them as well. So we're on number 1. And so I just wanted to facilitate a little bit more the purpose of this, and I'm not targeting any specific member right now. I just want to make sure that we're able to focus in on the questions, not get into details about specific schools, and we're able to get feedback on each of the 13 school letters. So with that, Commissioner Gibson.
Yeah, just real quick. I think, Commissioner, to tie into what Commissioner Creo said, when asking schools to respond, we've kind of been couching through the work that we've been doing, what's called RBA, results-based accountability. And it's asking the schools, what did you do? How much did you do? And is anyone better off? And if they could respond to each of those, anything that we've asked them, and keep that in a framework, I think they should be able to succinctly respond to us. And that's, to me, the last one is the most important with any of these is anyone better off from the actions that you took with any question or concern that we raise.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other feedback on Aviation Academy before we move on to the next one? Hearing none, if there's other general things that come up that would be helpful for each of the letters, we'll definitely incorporate that as well. All right. To the next.
Also, Alan, I'm just thinking that I might add that RBA kind of language up into the initial text at the top of the letter. So I've highlighted that as well. As soon as I've got a good draft, I will upload these with your comments. It's just hard to use the Google Drive, but some conflict
All right,
with
so
myself.
Cesar Chavez, is it possible to get that up on the screen as well, please?
Did
we
you want
just-
me to explain a little bit, Alan?
Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner Kriya, I think you said something real quick though.
You can make those, just in general, make these larger because at least on my computer, it's super duper small. Even one more would be great. Thank you very much, Julia.
I just want to point out that this is one of the this information was correctly in the Part A and is also in certain parts of Part A, and it's also a part of the section that Dr. Russell has corrected. So the VISTA score was correctly put into the Part A as a 20 and then incorrectly in another spot, but that's now been corrected. These are the areas, there's more for this school, so it's longer, but those are just things that I thought were relevant to ask questions on, resulting from Part A. And we were able to put in, or CSD was able to put in graduation rate for 22. So we also tried to include more than 1 year when we could. And I'm just trying to open mine on my computer, but I don't have much more to describe. If you have, I'm going to add those 3 to the letter that we just discussed.
Hey, Julia.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Kriya, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Alan. Is there a way to, the size is good, but expanding the document to see more of the doc? Like right now, it's just compressed, it seems like. I wish I had like what you guys have in your offices where there's 2 computer screens. So you can look at all these things over here and I can do things over here. I don't have that. And so it's hard to look at all these things at once. For instance, like what's below where it says rights of students. Because like being able to show the whole page, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Being able to show the whole page.
Commissioner Carrillo, I'm the one screen sharing, and if
okay.
I make it for the full pages to show, then it'll make it really small.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
Alan, I'm just checking in with CSD each time, but did CSD have any more comments, any additional topics they wanted to add?
For all of them, we've given you our best work, so we don't have additional comments.
Okay, great. I'm going to delete that section in each letter then.
Hold on. There we go.
Commissioner Kriya, sorry.
No, it's okay. So, I mean, obviously those general things that we all talked about on the last school will be included in all the schools. So in looking at their grad rates, and I know the population they serve, and I know the challenges, I understand the challenges their students face. And for this school in particular, I would just want them to be able to talk about what supports are they giving students to make sure they complete their education, because even after, I'm just looking at the graduation rates, and we've made the comments like, well, I'm just like throwing this out there, like let's say we non-renewed a school. well, then what's their other choice? Where we always have this kind of balance that we're facing of, school A may be failing. They're just not serving their kids the way they should and the way they're intended to based on their charter, but where are they going to go? And is that an acceptable answer for us, or just a question, if you will? So I would just want to, for this school in particular, what supports are they giving kids specifically to get their grad rates up?
Got it.
Thank you, Commissioner Creo. Commissioner Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. So for this school, one of the things I looked at was their grad rates are actually improving, which is great. All right. However, their proficiency remains very low and is not improving. So how does that correlate to their grad rate? Are their graduates graduating as non-proficient, or, I'd like some sort of just information on how, what their graduates, how are they faring, And second thing is, one of the things that CSD pointed out in their report was some of the families that expressed interest in ways to increase in-person learning. So I'd like to see if they could talk about how that might happen in their program.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Gibson.
Yeah, I just have a question on where it says 2021 rights of students and the concern over the IEPs. So are we expecting that the school is going to respond to that specific concern, or is it just because it says there that they're receiving training? I need a little more information on what that concern is with the special ed students and how serious that concern is. So whether it's from Special Ed Bureau or whether it's from the school, I don't really, it doesn't matter, but that's kind of alarming to me. And just saying someone's expressed a concern, it's not clear enough to me what that concern really is.
Would you like for me to respond?
I think I think we are collecting ideas right now and how they're addressed. I think we are going to do outside of this. So I don't know that, what I'm thinking, Alan, is I'm going to put this in here as a question for commissioners, and then we can, we're just flagging questions today. That's my thinking.
For sure. And I think Karina, I think I just don't want us to get into a conversation about a specific school and the content and when we're talking about raising questions at this stage. I know there's a balance to that. And so I'm trying to hold us accountable to that. Commissioner Creo?
But Alan, I have added that as a commissioner comment.
As a comment or question, yeah.
Looking at this, and they didn't complete their 2021 dash plan. What about their 2022 dash plan?
Okay.
I mean, I imagine Karina might know if they completed that and that they're current.
Okay, I've got that. Same comment, Alan, that we can figure out how to get this information back to the commissioners, but also put it in the letter.
All right. Any other comments or need for questions for Cesar Chavez?
I'll just add one more point of context that was kind of raised by what Commissioner Gibson said, is I attempted just to take what was in the CSD Part A or initial recommendation and just copy that. So if you want to expand on it, I think as Commissioner Gibson just did, I think that's appropriate in the question section.
Right. The next school is Dream Today Charter School.
Sorry, I'll be sharing that just a second. Nay.
The this is school obviously is coming over from another authorizer, so some of it's a little bit different. I think the only thing that I did want to flag on the application section is I put in what CSD had put in about the application, and they had indicated that they only made a decision to move to PEC late after the school was out of session. But this is I just want to point out that this requirement is a requirement for any charter school in any renewal application. I'm not sure if the districts require that or not, but it's not a PEC requirement. It's a state authorized, it's a authorizer requirement. And then Alan, I'm adding the three questions to this one as well. And taking out anything from,
CSDs.
yes, taking out CSD's version.
Is there a particular part of this document you want me to be on, or is this fine?
Or for Steve, would it help if I just read the areas that I've added, or you just wanted to scroll down, whichever is easier for you?
I guess I was making some notes on the other thing that it's challenging, I know, when size versus everything else. We can just wing it. I mean, things I saw, we'll just wing it. Thank you, Julia. Can I ask a question, Alan?
Go ahead.
Let me check the ball, sorry. So in noticing that their attendance in 2023 was 89%, and there was up from the previous year at 44%. That's double. That's more than double. I'd be curious to know what did they do? What did they do to get their attendance to double their attendance? And what happened earlier that attendance was only 44%? And I guess a question for Karina, just in general, when schools want to move from one authorizer to us, I guess it would be the same as a revocation where if we voted, no, we don't want the school. Am I misinterpreting this?
So I think your question is, if they apply for renewal through PEC, do you have the ability to make the same decisions, renewal, non-renewal, or renewal with conditions? And the answer is yes.
Okay, and then a question would be, why are they leaving their current authorizer? But oftentimes it's money or just whatever it might be. Okay, thank you.
I'll just add, they don't have to give a reason. The statute allows once a term, at the end of a charter term, for a school to select what they want to do, and you have many examples of schools going back and forth.
So they don't have to give a reason, and that's just
No.
fine, but that doesn't preclude me from asking. May not be in the letter. No, it may not be in the letter, but certainly as an elected, I'm going to ask them what I think is pertinent and what I want to know. They don't have to answer. They can say, you know something, by law, we don't have to answer you. And I'm gonna say, terrific, there's my answer.
I'll just add that that wouldn't be a grounds for any of the renewal decision. So I'm not saying you were saying that it would be, I'm just trying to be clear.
I understand, thank you.
I have that question, I have those two questions about attendance captured.
Question for Karina, please.
I think Commissioner Creo,
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner
I'm
Gibson
sorry, I didn't
joined,
see that.
beat you out there.
God, sorry.
I just have, and I'm not trying to be the devil here, but if a school hasn't successfully completed all components of the application, do we consider it an application?
I know, I'm thinking about that.
And, you know, it's not that I'm looking for something, but it concerns me.
It's, I have the same question.
Okay.
Thank you though for flagging that.
I mean, with new applications, we consider it not a complete application.
Sure.
But you know, I don't, you know, I don't know. Okay.
Commissioner Creo.
Hey, I wish Sharon were on today. Just in terms of the school being in Shiprock. How long, and Karina, you may know this, and I know it's in the renewal application. I just don't have it in front of me right this second because I have this. How long has this school been in existence? And how long has the head administrator had his job or her job?
Well,
So
they've been
the
around
school
at least
is-
10 years because they were there when oh wait, they were approved before I came on,
Oh, okay.
but they took quite a while to get their building up and going. So we had to, while I was on, several times extend their commencement of operation because they weren't able to inhabit the space. And I know the head administrator has not been there that long.
This is the first year that this
Yeah.
head administrator has been in her position, and this will be the third renewal.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
Real quickly, I'm sorry, this would be the second renewal, not the third. So it would be the third term.
The school started commencing operations in 2004. It was the first school year.
I think I've captured them all.
Bridget?
Chair Brower, thank you. I believe the school was, and I would have to go back in and check our records, but it's my recollection that this school opened much earlier, that it was one of the, so
No.
no?
Bridget, they were approved, but they couldn't get their occupancy on the tribal lands. There was
Okay.
significant problems with getting the occupancy certificate.
Okay.
So the contract had to be extended because you're right, they were approved before I came on the commission, but they didn't actually start to operate until after I started because of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Gibson.
And is it good for us to move on to the next? Next school. Let's do that. Next up is Explore Academy.
I will just note that, this was one of the schools that, the information was correct in part A, with the exception of one chart, which actually resulted in an overall increase in their score when the adjustments that, Bridget has made were made. I am adding those 3 questions and the RBA comment and taking out CSD. Also, there's already 3 questions by commissioners. The input did not commissioners did not need to provide their information only through this meeting, so just clarify that.
So how come their Vista score isn't on this one where it's been on the others?
If the Vista score was high, just like if anything else exceeded or
Oh, gotcha,
met,
gotcha. Okay, yep, I gotcha.
and the purpose of this letter is where more information is needed, so I focused and I went back and focused on things that CSD had raised. So this school has a high Vista score.
You might want to scroll down and see what the additional PEC comment, yeah, there you go.
Commissioner Creo.
I was looking, the graduation rate, I think it said 69%, if I'm remembering correctly. So that is below, isn't that below the state average? Or is the state average like 66 or something? I don't have the state average.
Below the state average.
They are below the state average.
Yeah, which is why it's it's why it's one of the topics up above.
Right, okay, good. I mean, that's concerning because, yeah, thank you.
So Alan, just to be clear, because that's already there, I wasn't going to add another comment unless Steve has a different question, because it's already there.
Commissioner Correa, does that satisfy your thought there? Okay, we're good.
Good on that one?
Are we good on that one, commissioners? All right, let's move on. Middle college.
I don't have any, I'll make the same comments, take out CSD. Their not much that I thought that was raised in, for areas of topics, so this one's shorter.
Any other additional questions or information requests? Commissioners? Seeing none, let's move on to our next school,
Good
which
on Miller
is
College.
School for the Arts.
Very little that I thought was flagged, so very little there.
Would you mind scrolling up? Oh, there's, yeah, there was very little there. I thought I was missing a whole bunch. Thanks.
I'm just gonna point out, although, Alan hasn't weighed in on the final text of the letter, that where there was very little, actually, in light of what Naomi has suggested that you do if an application's strong, to say it. So on several of these, I have put that in there because it was a strong application. We're gonna
Any
add these three.
Yeah. Great. Any other comments? Looks like we're ready to move on. We're at our halfway point with Raices, Elsevier Janashli Community School.
Can we make that larger? Great, thank you.
Bridget, am I correct on the school specific goal that they fell far below or did not meet? I'll check that with you.
I'm checking right now.
This is one that I had that question on that.
Commissioner Creel?
So it would seem that kind of an obvious thing here is relative to their finances. What are they doing? Or what have they done in this past couple of years, and what are their plans to not have these deficiencies and audit findings?
You know, in a similar vein, I when I see a school that has such a specific and unique like purpose and not meeting falling far below on their school indicators, I'd love to hear about what the school is doing to write that course on the school developed indicators, mission indicators.
You want to, what is the school doing to improve the school specific indicators? Is that?
Yeah, they're yeah, what are they doing to improve
it?
like
Okay.
the like meeting that, since they fell far below on two of the years.
Got it. Also, Bridget just confirmed it was false far below. There's one that I had that I just need to make sure I have it right.
Any other comments? Questions? All right. 7 down, 6 to go. San Diego Riverside.
Okay. San Diego Riverside is one of the schools, obviously, that's moving over. If CS, just as a comment, if CSD proposed a condition, I put that in a footnote on the first page, copied exactly how they drafted it. And then I had, Jemez Public Schools had posed several questions, so I've dropped them in here. In part, because of the condition, develop a compliance corrective action plan on any applicable one. So I probably wouldn't have included it if that hadn't been the language of the condition, but because it was, that's at least my thinking in the letter, just to explain that. And well, I don't know, and maybe it's just a question. There was a letter of November 4th of 2022 by Dr. Madrano that had 57 questions. So there were 18 questions and then 57 more. I don't know what those 57 more are. So if it was in the documents that I saw, I didn't see it.
Commissioner Ingham, then Commissioner Beck, then Karina.
This is one that I have particular questions about that I guess are pretty. It stated that they don't have a contract with the school district at this point. I am not understanding how we can take over a school that doesn't have a, and we're referencing the contract from 2019, I believe. With this many unresponsive portions, I'm not understanding. Is that okay to take over a school that has been functioning without a contract? It seems really crazy to me. Thanks.
I can respond to that, Alan.
Go ahead.
So, Commissioner Ingham, back to kind of that earlier thing. Well, I'll start with you guys can only control what you control. So you have for a very long time controlled the fact that you've worked hard to get up to speed or have, I don't know, you've worked hard to comply with the statute for a very long period of time, and including work that you've recently done and including the rule. Districts vary, as I understand it. I haven't done a survey of districts in terms of how they relate to their charter schools, but that's outside of something that you have control of. So whether something was done at a district level correctly or not correctly, is really kind of outside of what I think you need to be thinking about or need to be worrying about. You know, we all might have an opinion as to whether that was correct or not, but that isn't really something that would change what you would do. They have an ability to change authorizers at the end of their term, whether they actually had a contract or not. And that's happened almost both ways, actually. schools have left PEC and gone to a district, and school have left a district and come to PEC. And I want to say you kind of take them as you find them. I know that CSD often has much less information from districts. And they often just report what they have and what they don't have. So I think it is appropriate for the schools that are moving over from the districts to apply to you for renewal. And you can take, I think Director Chavez already said that, you can take action to renew, non-renew, or renew with conditions. So I think it's appropriately there. You kind of asked two questions, which is, one is what should you be thinking about as a commissioner with a school coming before you? And those are appropriate, and those are appropriate for you to decide in December. But is it appropriate for them to have applied? Yes.
Commissioner Beck?
Julia, I had a few things that I put in that I don't see here. Maybe I've been trying to look, maybe it is here, but I didn't see it.
Could you rate, some of them, I could have missed it, but some of them were at the top. So if you just tell me the topics, I can tell you if I thought they were there.
Well, the issue with the years 3 and 4, they had 0% for student target attendance. They didn't have, it was 0% for those two. And then the teacher retention rate.
No, I'll drop both of those in. Thank you for flagging.
And then the other thing was the governing body issue where all of them were unknown.
I tried to go back. I tried to go back and find that. I thought they were known. And in fact, they have a lot of
I just looked on the
no, I think I got mixed. I'm gonna add all three of yours in there.
Okay,
Let's just
no
leave it
worries.
at that. I'm sorry.
no worries.
I think I was on a different.
Yeah, because I just looked
I know
at.
you're right. You're right.
And
I'll
so-
fix that. Thank
No
you.
worries. Thank you.
Karina?
Yeah, so this is, of course, an unusual renewal where the district did pose several questions. And I think that between now and December 1, our plan is to sit down with the school and go through each of these. Some of them are not applicable to the school. Some the school has resolved and others may be concerns. So I'm not sure where we got this list of questions that were dropped in here, 18. I'm not sure if how you found those. But
I'll tell you where I did find them. I found them in part A. And they were, I just copied and pasted them.
okay. So I feel like this is one where there's more work to do on the charter schools division side before we could have a more specific corrective action plan, and that we would be looking at context and progress. So I just wanted the commission to be aware of that. I wouldn't say that there is a problem with each one of these items that are listed here. For example, I see their governing board information on their website.
And I think the letter. I'm not sure the date of the letter. It could have been a while back as well.
Commissioner Creo, then Commissioner Gibson.
Am I correct in understanding that because they're putting in an application to have us as the authorizer, they will no longer have the opportunity if, for instance, we say we're not going to renew, they do not have that opportunity kind of concurrently to stay with MS district. Is that
That's correct? Yeah, you can't have your
Can't just
cake.
do it once.
You have to choose by October 1st.
Hedge their bets, right? Okay, thank you. You know what? One more thing, and maybe this is just for us in general, and it's a thought of mine relative to schools, for instance, charters in whether they're in Gallup, Shiprock, Jemez, that obviously there's charters in all of these areas that are really, really struggling and appears that they have for years. And I'm just wondering what efforts are made by the state, I mean, and these districts to help these kids rather than have them in all of these little charters that just aren't doing well. Just throwing that rhetorical question out there.
Commissioner Gibson?
Thanks. This goes along with the governance membership. I'd like to know, if they've got a solid plan for becoming a Board of Finance, if they were renewed by us. And I tried to look, because I've read all of these, but do they have e-occupancy at this point in time? I know it was a question. I tried to look back at the documents real quick now. I couldn't see it. And I know that was a concern a couple of years ago when they tried to come with us with Walatoa, and it was their building and their occupancy that was a huge barrier, besides the fact that they still had a contract. But I think now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I think if the school could respond to how successfully or unsuccessfully they were able to reach out to the school district for help, I think that'll help tell the story for us. Think of that school and that relationship between the school and the school board, which is their authorizer.
So was the school able to obtain support from its present authorizer? I'm not sure that's what, is that what, enough?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope, hopefully they're able to document some, reach out and whether it was responded to or not. I mean, obviously they don't have a contract, so their authorizer was remiss in whenever they renewed them to re-sign a contract. So there's there is a concern, but our job is not to be monitoring the authorizer at this point in time, but I would like to know what kind of support, considering the school district does get the 2%. So, can they speak to it all, the 2% and how the district has used it to help support the school as well?
I think that's a good point, Commissioner Gibson. And I think, Julia and Commission, I think we should include that within the other school that's moving.
So how was how did the I'm just gonna also say that during the day today, if I have questions about whether I've correctly put in what I think any commissioner has said, I'll reach out to you individually.
I think maybe we can expand that a little bit, because I know it is often a concern that special ed funding and the ESSER funding didn't flow to district authorized schools at the level that it should have, and certainly not at the level that it does to state authorized charters. It flows at 100%. I know special ed doesn't always, and I think there was a concern about ESSER funding. So hopefully the school can help enlighten us with that, because I think that can help tell the story of how well they were able to support students.
Alan, I'm splitting these into those kind of related topics, but into three so that they are all there.
Yeah, I would include also, Commissioner Gibson, on your point, the title funds too. I know
Yeah.
that sometimes even Title I and Title III bilingual does not flow as appropriately as we would hope it would.
And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe we should do similarly with Dream Dene.
Yeah, I think so. I think similar questions for them.
Yeah,
Relationship with the current authorizer, and then the questions, Julia, that Commissioner Gibson
Okay.
does as well.
And Alan, we have a little bit of time. There's so much that's happening here so that I don't think you need to feel rushed to get these out today. That you've got the time to think about, does this include everything you want? Okay, I'm adding those to Dream Dene, just a second.
Karina?
Want to let commissioners know that in your drive, in the folder that has the October 2023 renewal applications, that you have additional information not posted on the website, and that schools that switch authorizers were required to submit information about their prior charter terms. So you may want to go through, I'm looking right now at the Dream Dene folder, and there are multiple documents for section F, which I think is the requirement for the switching. Or maybe it's, let me see.
Can you say again where that folder is located?
Yeah, so hold on real quick. I just want to double check the label. But in the Google Drive, there's a folder within the PEC drive called number 3, renewal and new schools, and then there's a 2023 renewing schools folder.
Thank you. Commissioner Taylor?
And just one thing, part F is change in authorizer. So there are specific things we're asking for those that are switching authorizers. So if it's labeled F, it's from the schools that are switching authorizer.
So, okay, thank you. My question is, maybe this isn't an appropriate question for this time, but I just want to put it out there. How is it that how did CSD come to a recommendation for renewal with extremely low proficiency rates, all kinds of other issues? How did they, I know it was with conditions, but I mean, is that an appropriate question for now or no?
My suggestion is we just leave that question right now.
Okay.
I mean, I hear you.
You just don't want to get
Okay.
into like a discussion of like,
Okay.
that could move into, Commissioner Taylor, like we talked about before, into a discussion of a decision that we might make on a school. And so I think maybe
Okay.
something we
But
don't
I
want to-
do think it's appropriate for Commissioner Taylor to have let CSD know that he has that question.
Okay.
So that when the schools come forward, then that's certainly an appropriate conversation to have in December with the
Okay.
school here.
All right. Thank you.
So I'm not putting that anywhere here. Alan, just to be clear, I did add those 3 questions to the 3 funding authorizer questions to San Diego Riverside and Dream Dene.
Great, thank you.
And
All right.
and e-occupancy, so.
All right, let's move on to School of Dreams.
School of Dreams, you got an email today. From Director Chavez. There had been in an earlier version a question on the foundation, and I took that out, but there is a foundation finances series of questions that still, actually I'd like Karina and Bridget to both look at that, make sure that those questions still are relevant.
Sure.
It's at the bottom of this section, but I did take out questions on foundation membership based on the email from today. Oh, and I think Commissioner Taylor's hand is up again, I think.
Was that still from the vestige from the last one, or was that a question? Sorry.
That was the last one, sorry.
Any questions, commissioners, on soda? Commissioner Creel?
It would be the same concerns that I mentioned earlier, Julia, around with proficiencies like this, what's their plan? And I know you can look at their graduation rates and say, oh, look at the proficiency is so bad, but the grad is so good. That just speaks to the thing that I've mentioned, many times. You can graduate with a D. You can get a diploma with a D average. What does that say about what we're doing and what we're allowing schools to do as charters?
I will add that. I'm not finding it right this second, but I'm gonna add a note. I'll make sure it's in there.
Commissioner Beck?
Yeah, to Commissioner Carrillo's point, that can sometimes be a indicator of grade inflation. Being a teacher for 13 years, there were certain times when the administration would put a little pressure on me to pass a student, et cetera, for their graduation rates. That's been known to happen at times. So when you see that, that can sometimes be an indicator of a little bit of grade inflation.
I've got the question added. Good.
Anything else, commissioners?
Another
Commissioner Creel?
question that maybe Karina can answer. Weren't there challenges with the headmaster at this school being on the board of finance? And if so, how long was he the head of the board of finance, or the foundation? That's what I'm thinking, while he was the headmaster. And that's remedied now, right?
Yeah, that's
So
remedied.
that's exactly what the email was about this morning.
Okay, that's what I. Okay.
Our staff didn't capture it accurately, and actually there was miscommunication between the school and our staff. So we are rewriting that so that it's clear. But yes,
Thank
he's
you.
not on the foundation board anymore.
Steve, if you'd like a question, though, that's a second different topic, if you want to understand the history. Yeah, I'm not asking you to put that question in there. I'm just saying you can.
You know, I would like to understand the history of that because it seems to me so flagrantly inappropriate. Now granted, it may have been remedied now, but how does this go unnoticed and accepted for whatever period of time it was? Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to Solare.
Give me 1 second, Ellen, I was on the wrong document. Just want to get that question in there. I don't have anything to add to the drafting of this. Was all done the same way.
Commissioner Gibson?
Yeah, I know one of the audit findings was an audit finding on the foundation where there was an explanation that there was $200,000 that was I guess there was a loan from the Raza Group for the school, and that an outside entity paid $200,000 for it, and then the school then had an obligation, or the foundation had an obligation to pay that $200,000 back. And I don't think it was clearly explained how that $200,000 by the foundation is being paid back. Is it being paid back through fundraising of the foundation? Or is it being paid back through an increase in the lease reimbursement to make up that $200,000 debt, as well as the debt that the foundation has?
Okay.
Any other comments, questions on Solare? All right, let's move on. Southwest Prep.
Southwest Prep, I just want to flag, this is the one for next week. So this letter will go out. They already know that they'll get this letter and need to respond or be ready quickly. We're referencing that in the letter. I'll just note that this is one of the schools that the combined table resulted in different overall academic scoring, but and that will be, that's already been remedied today. I think the information was correct in part A, but not correct in that one chart, so that has been corrected today. And the school is, will be notified on that and has already asked to be on the agenda next week, so. That is referenced, as a question for school-specific goals, did not meet the standard for 5 out of the 6 goal assessments. They have 2 goals. So I don't think it's 5 out of 6. I think it's 3 out of 4, because they have 2 goals for 2 years. Bridget,
Can you
will you
please
look at
scroll up?
this? Bridget, this is the one that I have a question about. If you'll make sure, I think it is 5 out of 6 because it did go back to when the previous CSD director did an assessment.
Sorry, Julia, I had to switch to my phone hotspot because I've been having internet issues. Can you,
Yeah, can you just confirm that the language is right
okay,
on Southwest Prep school-specific goals? I think they did not meet standard for 5 out of the 6 goal assessments, because I think it was over a 3-year
the-
term.
yeah, I just updated those and, do you want me to just, confirm?
Let me know.
that-
Yes, thank you.
Okay. 6 years or 9 years? You mean 21, 22 and 22, 23, or do you mean years 2, 3, and 4? Or sorry, that actually, sorry. 1, 2, 3.
2, 3, and 4. Years
So
2, 3, and
they-
4, I think
they-
they did not meet standard 5 out of 6.
They did not meet the standard 4 out of 6.
4
They
out of 6.
exceeded
Okay.
the standard for goal 2 in 21, 22, and they exceeded the standard for goal 2 in 23, 24. And that is in the revised part A that is now in the PEC Google Drive and on the website. The overall rating for both years does not meet standard just because of, when you average 100 points with 25 or with 0, it still doesn't average to 75. But they did exceed the standard for goal 2.
Any other questions from the commission?
Can you please scroll up? Oh, that's just that. Got it. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Southwest Secondary.
I will just note that there is an English language proficiency progress number that is flagged a couple of times, and I think it was just missing here, but because it was missing, and I think that that's something in particular you focused on the past, but also the new performance framework you'll focus on. So I think that's correct that it wasn't listed. And then Commissioner Beck, I want to make sure that the language of this one is still consistent with what you were asking.
Yeah, I wanted to do a real quick explanation of this. This is actually in my territory here, and I visited a few times. The Vista proficiency reports for 22-23 were awful, terrible. Specifically, interestingly enough, just in English and math. The science one was actually very good. They have this smart lab there, and they've had a changeover in administration, but when they were introduced at one of the meetings a few months ago, we talked about that. It is an amazing lab. The kids absolutely love it. They are so engaged in it. And then when I was going to the other classes, they didn't seem to be quite as engaged, to say the least. So their smart, their mission specific goals were related solely to the smart lab, and the idea of getting a minimum number of B's or C's, I think it was B's in there. And so of course they did very well in that. It's the reason why I put that in there is that I think that the mission specific goal of just dealing with the smart lab was way too narrow, and they need to broaden that out in terms of their overall academics, because their proficiency rates came way down, and they were very, you can see up there, if you scroll to the higher area just a little bit, you can see the growth rate of -9% and a growth rate of -17%. Really problematic. So that's why I put that in there.
I changed the wording, so I wanted to confirm the wording's still right. So that's still what you want.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Creel?
Just the comment on what Tim said, but look at those graduation rates, will you? When you're talking about grade inflation. It's just, it kind of boggles the mind. Thanks.
You want that same question that you asked previously?
Yeah, I'm going to be asking that on a lot of these schools. Is just like, what are you doing? You know, they've been around, you know, for a really long time. And I just feel like, I mean, what I'm seeing is a lot of schools that need to be possibly renewed or closed, or possibly renewed with conditions. It's like, get your act together, or your days are over. We're not doing these kids any favors.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting was that the Vista reports on the preparatory they were both on the same campus, and the preparatory one was good, solid, and this was not, which makes.
I only want to go to questions, so sorry to interrupt you, but.
Then the question would probably be, to what do you attribute that on the preparatory or elementary level, you're performing at this rate, while on the secondary level, you're not? Where's the slip in what you're doing? With that, Tim, does that kind of encapsulate what you said?
Exactly.
Right.
I need
Bridget?
to think about that one. They're separate schools. I just need to think about that one.
Bridget?
Thank you, Chair Brower. That's exactly what I was about to say. We, in the first draft of the preliminary evaluation analysis, we did state specifically, you know, despite the fact that the schools are located on the same campus, they are not like one's the feeder school to the other. They're not two sides of the same coin. They're very different schools, and they have different head administrators. And it was actually surprising to me when I visited that, wow, these are two completely different schools. And so we did not put that in the report because we didn't want to reference one school when talking about another school in an official document. But, you know, you can dig more into this at the renewal hearings, but I don't want commissioners to go into it with the idea that like this is an elementary and a high school that are basically conjoined, and they're not.
I think we can make it be a more generic question though, so I think I can keep it because I do think that the question as to what is something like, what is the level of student performance for kids entering your school and how do you sustain that progress or something? I think there's a way I can do a question that still gets to the idea raised.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, let's go to our final school, at least alphabetically, Taos Academy.
This is another application that I put in, that the application was a strong one. Very, not many things that I saw to raise. Seeing none, I would just suggest that if I will reach out to commissioners, if you see a phone call from me today, it means I want to clarify something with you on this today. And if you would do me a favor, if you have anything to add, please make sure that an email goes to both Alan and myself so that he and I are coordinated in terms of getting these out. But I think, Alan, I'd like to let it sit with so many good comments today. I'd like to let it sit till tomorrow, but I would still like to get those out.
I think what we can do, I think in terms of just the, for the commission's understanding, we'll probably send these out later on tomorrow afternoon then, probably after 1 o'clock would be my earliest that I could be in front of a computer. So it'll be after 1 o'clock tomorrow. So that'll give you all a chance. I know it's not ample time, but it'll give you some time to reach out either to me or to Julia or to both through email or through phone to clarify anything that we discussed from your point of view today. All right, anything else? Well, I think our work here is done, but our journey continues.
Thanks much.
All right, take care, y'all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.